You're listening to Reignite, a podcast where we believe in equal rights for organic and synthetic life forms. I'm MJ.
And I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And joining us today is Dave Grima. Please tell me I said that right.
Yeah, you said it right. That's fine.
Yes!
You did it!
Yeah, I mean, like, in Maltese, which is my nationality, they'll say Grima, but I anglicize it. I'm always Grima. I wouldn't even think you were talking to me, you know?
I love it.
My brain wanted to make it a long I. I was like, no, that's probably wrong.
Dave, I'm really happy to have you here. I've known Dave for a little while. He does an incredible podcast called the Dinosaur Machine Game Club Podcast, which is a book club, but for games. I've been a guest on their Messenger episode. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about the podcast and the kind of stuff you do with it?
It's a project we've been doing for a few years now. We basically just choose different, usually indie games, and we play them, discuss them in a full spoiler cast, and we also tangentially discuss philosophical classifications, such as when does a vessel stop becoming a jar and start becoming a bottle, you know?
Important questions.
Important questions like that, you know?
Love it. Yeah, I really like the idea of a book club podcast for video games, and your episodes, even if I haven't played the game, are really entertaining because you guys really go deep on these games and talk about why you did or didn't like them.
I'm glad you feel that way. Like, really, we started it also because I was becoming such a curmudgeon, like, for games in general, just like, because Mark, Dan, and I always play co-op games together, and it would just be an argument over what game we were playing next, and then I'm the one just saying no to everything, because I'm like, that sounds lame. So, like, we're like, you know what we're going to do is we're going to find a way, we're going to regain your passion for gaming, and this has been our attempt to do that.
Excellent.
Is it working?
Yeah, I think so. You know.
That's the important thing.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your history with Mass Effect? How did you first discover the game?
Well, I had heard about Mass Effect for a long time. As someone who never owned an Xbox, you know, and I was jealous of, like, this is the best RPG out there right now. You know, it's like, oh. So I was just hungry for it. And then when Mass Effect 2 came out on the PlayStation 3, like, I jumped in on it, and I went in deep, you know? It's like, and I never went back because I can't, like, bring myself to move backwards in terms of game mechanics. I just feel like, you know, there are probably things that they improved upon certain systems, and I never went back, you know, but maybe if they fix it up in the Legendary Edition, I'll finally play the first Mass Effect. But I did, like, a full Paragon male shep and a full Renegade fem shep, and I've always, like, my Renegade fem shep, I always feel like is my true play through, even though that's not the one I played first, because I spent more time in game, because that's the one I did hard mode for with everything.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Interesting.
Oh, okay. So, that being said, we like to ask people what their ideal choices are leading up to Mass Effect 3. And I know that you said that you don't go back and you didn't spend time in Mass Effect 1, but you did play the comics.
Yeah, I did use the comic to make the decisions, yes.
Yeah, so you were able to make some decisions.
I mean, I was happy that I saved the Arachnite Queen, just since that comes up so much in the future games. But I have no recollection of what I did with the council. I've never met Caden. I don't know why. I was just like, I'll just always save Ashley. I don't know, because I think it was because I wanted to see what would happen in terms of, like, love triangle angles. And then I definitely rewrote the Geth. You know, I always had Rex with me. And everyone survived in Mass Effect 2 in the collector base, except in one playthrough I have Samara, and in my Renegade playthrough I have Morinth.
Sure.
Right. Did you keep the collector base, or did you destroy it?
I believe I destroyed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because fuck the elusive man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you say if you saved the Arachnite Queen or
Yes,
not?
absolutely. I saved the Arachnite Queen.
Okay.
No genocides. Not doing
No
it.
genocides here.
Why? Just because they're insects looking things?
Exactly.
Like, we're not going to save them? That's...
So I'm guessing you romanced Ashley?
No, I romanced Liara.
Oh, okay. And did you stay faithful to Liara, or did you have a different romance?
She's bae, you know?
There we go. You said that you do both Paragon and Renegade. You did both.
Yeah.
But you lean more Renegade? Your Renegade was kind of like your true
Yeah,
playthrough?
I like my Renegade playthrough more. I just like being angry. It's like that's more of a, power fantasy for me since I'm a nice guy.
There you go.
That's fair.
What about, did you have a favorite class of the two that you played? Do you have a preference?
I played Infiltrator, which I felt was a little boring. It's just like I'm going to cloak and get a good headshot all the time. And then with the male shep and my fem shep, I played Sentinel, and I enjoyed that more.
Sentinel's really good, yeah.
I like Sentinel.
Yeah, it sounds like what's interesting also is, and we haven't talked about this yet, I think, on the show, but with the Legendary Edition, they're including all of DLC except specific ones they're leaving out from 1 because of the lost source code. But one of the DLC,
Just one.
Yeah, just Pinnacle Station, right?
Yes, and Pinnacle Station wasn't fun anyway.
But they have stated that they are including the comic book DLC in the Legendary Edition. So if you want to skip, because there was a comic for 1 and there was a comic for 2 that came later.
Yeah.
If you want to skip straight to 3, you can do that with the Legendary Edition, which I think was really smart, actually, because I still feel like 3 is going to be the easiest for maybe new players or new people who are newer to games to jump into. I think it's more forgiving in its story mode. I think the mechanics are the tightest, even if the story's not the best. And so being able to go through those comics, like my spouse has wanted to play Mass Effect for a while, but she tried playing Mass Effect 1 and she was like, I can't do this. She's just not, my spouse doesn't play a lot of games. And so the 2 analog stick thing is still tough for her. She's used to.
Yeah, that's always a big thing for people to get over.
And so if with the comics being in the Legendary Edition, I think she might actually finally get a chance to play. Because I feel like even if you're not great with analog sticks in 3, it can be a little more forgiving if you're playing it on an easier mode.
They did have that story mode or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they really lighten up the combat.
Yep. So, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think now is a good time to get into our summary for this mission.
Yes, let's do that. Having the location of the Reaper base is all well and good, but the Quarian live ships are still under threat from the Geth fighter squadrons. With Legion's help, Shepard enters a virtual reality to disrupt the corrupted Reaper code and to learn a little more about the origin of the Morning War from Geth histories. When Shepard is finished, they receive a shock as dozens of Geth Primes step down from their pods, volunteers to stand against the Reapers and alongside Organics.
That moment when it happens, and we'll get to that, but like I just definitely did.
I forgot.
And I was like, oh no, I'm going to die. What's happening?
I was like, oh god, is there a combat thing that I forgot about? Oh my god. This is actually one of the few times we don't really have a lot of Paragon / Renegade choices to make. We don't really have a lot of dialogue choices to make here. It's all very one-on-one between Shepard and Legion.
Yeah, totally. Which I appreciate that we get that time.
Yeah.
So, Dave, what in your opinion is the significance of this mission? What does it mean to you?
Well, I felt like this whole mission is a total reminder that history is told through the lens of the victor.
Yeah.
Like, the whole thing just feels really real. It feels like a story about racism and hate and being misunderstood and, like, social civil rights. Like, these... You find out, like, okay, the Quarians created the Geth, and they were... And what? Because the Geth started making some decisions on their own that they weren't prepared for. They just wanted to shut them down. But they're like, hey, why do you want to turn us off? They have feelings. It's like, you can't just create life like this and turn it off because it's not what you expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. And for a sci-fi game to go down that alley, it always struck a chord. Plus, I wanted to see how you guys would talk about a non-combat, game mechanic in a combat-oriented game.
Yeah, it's totally fair, and we'll get into that in a minute. But like, yeah, it was interesting. I forgot how this whole mission went, so I was kind of baffled the whole time.
I mostly remembered.
Is you just like walk around and shoot circuits to sever connections. Because they can't get away. They're not going to create a game mechanic just for one mission. They're like, they just kind of like say, I wanted to give you something you were familiar with, Shepard.
Before we dive a little deeper into the mission, though, we do have a few check-ins, not a ton. The first one was after the last mission, we talked to Joker and Edie, and Joker makes commentary about how, and this feels like a commentary on like gun ownership, because he's like, you can't just strap a gun to a farming ship and all of a sudden you don't expect to be a part of war. It's just a really interesting perspective that I hadn't thought of until Joker brought it up.
Oh yeah, putting a gun on an agricultural ship doesn't automatically make it a dreadnought. He calls the ships glass cannons. They are not structurally sound. You're actually endangering people. It's basically like putting rockets on a school bus full of children.
Yeah, and Shepard like kind of brings up though, but they have to defend themselves, and ED's like, well, actually, the way the Geth work, if they didn't have guns, they'd probably recognize them as like non-threats and move past them to get to the ones that did have guns, the actual ships.
Which the Quarians have a really hard time believing because they've spent so much of their history seeing the Geth as this constant threat. And if you present this concept of like, hey, if you were like a straight civilian who is unarmed, the Geth are not going to bother you. Admiral Ron, Admiral Garrel,
Chorus.
And Zen especially.
Yeah.
Chorus would be like, I think that's probably true, but everybody else would be like, no.
Oh. And meanwhile, it's the Quarians who fired first on unarmed Geth.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. This time and that time.
You're absolutely right.
Like, now and then. I also forgot to put in the notes, but there was an argument between Ron and Garrel arguing over the use of the patrol fleet. And I had to listen to this conversation cycle a couple of times so I can really parse what the argument was about. Mm-hmm. And Garrel needed the patrol fleet to cover so that way they could perform some repairs on the heavy fleet.
Okay.
And if he didn't get the patrol fleet to cover him, then the Geth would outflank them and they wouldn't have any room to maneuver. And it would, like, effectively trap them. And Ron is upset. And she's like, no, you've manipulated me enough. You're not getting my patrol ships. Like, last time I listened to you, everything went to hell. No.
Yeah. I sided with Ron in that argument because...
I sided with Garrel.
Yeah, I just feel like at this point, Garrel has not, like Zen, has been kind of conniving and disingenuous. And so I just was like, no, you're not going to put more lives at risk. But I understand where you're coming from because it is to help them with the lives that are already in danger. But it's like... I feel like there's, either way, someone is sacrificing, right?
Yeah. If it had been civilian ships, then I wouldn't have agreed to it. But the patrol ships are there to be part of the fight. And they are there to serve this purpose, to allow the heavy fighters to have these moments. And it is a sound strategy that is not putting anyone in undue harm.
Yeah, I just didn't trust him for it to be a sound strategy after he got what he wanted.
I 100% see where you're coming from, and that's why I had to listen to it a few times, because I didn't want to just go against Garrel because I hate him and want to punch him in the face all the time. Because it's not just about me or my ego. It's about these people who are out there who are fighting for their lives and for their home. So I had to listen to it a few times.
That one was tough. Unlike the Edie Javik argument, which was so easy to choose a side.
Oh, no. That was easy to side.
So Javik...
You'll have to tell me, because I've never experienced Javik in the game. Because I didn't have that DLC.
So Javik is is the last living Prothean. He is an asshole and an imperialist and talks down to everybody. And he's arguing with Edie. So it's one of those, you can choose one side in the argument that you see in the game. Mm-hmm. And he's arguing with Edie about he doesn't trust her. These robots are evil. She's a robot who has free will, so she must be evil. And just kind of treating her like crap, honestly, and just yelling at her. And Edie's trying to explain it's not the same. And
the thing that pisses me off most about this fight is that Javik could have had this conversation with Edie from anywhere in the ship, because Edie is effectively the ship.
Yeah.
He went to the AI core, where, I guess her brain is housed, you could say.
Where she might feel the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah. He went straight to her house. So he could say, synthetics are not the same as organics. You are going to eventually decide to kill all organics like all synthetics do. You're like every other synthetic. Don't fool yourself into thinking that you're capable of evolution, that you're capable of change, things like that. And I hate him so much.
Yeah, and so, of course, we both sided with Edie, who's just trying to kind of defend herself and explain how Javik's not completely wrong, that some synthetics might do that, but not her. She has free will, she's learned, she understands, and yeah, it's just, it's really brutal to see this character that looked so cool when I first got the game. Because, of course, anyone who's played the Mass Effect games is stoked to get their own Prothean, right? That's the whole thing since the first game is the Protheans are gone. We'll never see them. Here's all this history, and now here's a living one. But as an adult, I'm just like, wow, this guy is a dick and the worst.
Unfortunately, he sucks.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's been so easy to side against him because he, again, is an imperialist. He just thinks, that only the Protheans mattered. Now that they're gone, he still knows best and that everything else is bad and terrible and not as good as he is. And it's like, what is wrong with you?
So much is wrong with him.
It's like Bill in his head getting back and like bringing back Genghis Khan and be like, this guy is not awesome.
Pretty much, yeah.
Some of my favorite things that Edie said on her side of the argument, she reminded Javik that his race of Protheans were basically a race of slave owners and that they enslaved every single species that came in their path. She said that her right to self-defense does not harm others who are not interested in harming her. And lastly, we are a part of this cosmos whether you like it or not. And like anyone from an oppressed community can really, I feel like, vibe with that really hard, and I want to make that into a cross stitch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this idea that just because you don't think I should exist doesn't mean I don't exist, right? Like, it honestly reminds me a lot of the, transphobic conversations that are in the media a lot now. Like, just because you don't believe that trans people are real people doesn't make them not real people. That's not how that works. It doesn't, you're just invalidating their existence. It doesn't actually make them disappear.
Not me being anxious about having a conversation with anyone about being non-binary.
Yeah.
What is gender?
A construct, obviously.
We're just people.
Gender, I hardly know her.
Define people.
Define people. What are people? What are they really? Just meat sacks.
Anyway.
The only other significant check-in we had is we walk in on Garrus trying to talk to his father. It drives me crazy, though, in the subtitles that it just says Garrus's father. They don't give him a name, even though he probably has one in the lore.
I think he does.
But
have
like
a name.
with the council, also
maybe you have to see it from Shepard's perspective, and Shepard doesn't know Garrus's dad's name.
That actually, I'd never thought of that. But
his name is Castus.
But like, Shepard doesn't know that.
I feel like Fenshep should know that.
Especially
Fenshep
yours.
Was romance
romance.
I feel like I should know that. I know his sister's name. I know her name is Solana.
But like it happens with, I've called this out on the podcast so often. All of the counselors, either the new ones or the original ones, have names. But whenever you have subtitles on, it just says Solarian Counselor, Turian Counselor. And I know that's partially so people, if they don't remember the names, will know who's talking.
Yeah.
Especially if you're deaf and you can't hear them.
They could have parenthetical it, though.
Right? Like, that's my thought. But I never thought of that because your logic...
Solarian.
Your logic, Dave, applies to Shepard, because if I were Shepard, I wouldn't bother to remember their names.
That one's the Solarian one. Yeah,
because they don't believe us. So why should I bother to learn their names? Yeah.
Whatever. They don't believe me that the Reapers exist.
Exactly.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a really tender and soft moment of Garrus trying to get through on the communications to speak to his father. We find out from his father that the Krogan are there, they're doing their best. His sister has a broken leg, she'll be okay. They're still having a hard time evacuating, though.
Yeah.
And I just want to give him a hug. I want to do something nice for him. I want to, treat him to a day at a spa or something.
Garrus would hate that. There's no way he would want to go to a spa. Well, I guess maybe. But yeah, it's really interesting because also it's pretty hectic. Like we only can hear the message, it's garbled, and then it gets cut off, and that's it. And what drives me crazy on a meta level here is that then when you try and talk to Garrus, he just brings up the Turian, not the Turians, the Quarians and stuff, and it's like it's almost like they're disconnected, and that's a programming thing, right? It's not really a character thing.
You don't think it's just showing how private of a person he is? He's not going to bring his baggage into this conversation?
That's fair. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, I didn't think it was entirely disconnected. I felt like he had this moment, he said this little prayer where he prayed to the spirits, and then he kind of compartmentalizes and realizes, oh, you're here. you probably want to talk about what just happened. Okay, let's talk about Quarians now.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I feel like it's a very natural thing to do when you're a person and you're, like, struggling with a lot of emotions and a lot of things happening at one time.
Sure.
Compartmentalize.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I really related to is the prayer he says at the end. He says it in a way of like, I don't know that I even believe you, but please, if you can do anything, like help.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you're real or not, but spirits.
And like for me as a Jewish person who has embraced his Judaism more as an adult, I did have, you know, the jury's still out on the whole God thing, but like I believe in the tradition. I believe in going to temple and saying prayers and spending time with family as a community, at least. But like I've prayed before and like I've had that kind of thought of like, I don't even know that I actually believe you exist.
Honestly, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, but like it's one of
Who does it hurt?
Right. But I'm like, you know, I've had that moment of, you know, doubt, but also still wanting help in an unhelpable situation. So that felt very relatable to me about Garrus.
Yeah. My poor man.
You'll hug him later.
I want to, like, do something nice for him. Set him up in a very high spot so that way he could just see all the cars flying by.
And we know how much he loves
Give
that.
him some bottles to shoot.
Exactly. Practice his sniping. But that's it for check-ins.
Maybe one day he'll take me home to his father and his father won't hate me.
I mean...
Garrus wouldn't care if his father hates you.
That's true.
No, I don't think Garrus would, but I do. Those are different things. Garrus would be like, why do we have to do this? Me, because I have anxiety.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So, with this mission... When we if you talk to Legion right before you go do this mission, which we forgot to mention in the check-ins, he said he's going to accompany you on this mission. What's interesting about this is we're about to talk about who we brought on this mission, but it doesn't matter. And I forgot that it doesn't matter. But I brought Caden because, again, every time you bring your love interest on a mission, it's a date. So, of course, I brought Caden. And then I brought Tali because, again, it's Geth related. I feel like Tali is a good... person to bring along for extra context, even though that ended up not many.
I think I likely brought Tali and Edie because I would wanted to, if conversation was going to happen, I'd want to get their
That's
opinions.
good. I like that.
Yeah. That's fair. I thought about Edie for half a second, but then I was like, no, Garrus goes with me on all my missions.
So who did you bring?
Like, it feels like a betrayal to not bring him on a mission. Like, where are you going? You don't go anywhere without me.
Who'd you bring besides Garrus?
Garrus and Tali,
okay.
yeah. Team Dextro.
And so we're on the shuttle, and Legion's explaining to us the situation and how we have to go remove them from the server, which, you know, Shepard thought, I'm just going to go blow stuff up. And he's like, no, you actually have to go into the server, into the computer, like the scene in Zoolander. The
files are in the computer?
Exactly. You knew what I was thinking. And Shepard's like, can I even do that? And then, of course, Legion...
Yeah, didn't you see Tron?
Right?
Except there was no light cycle.
There was no light cycle.
There should have been.
Legion informs you, well, I mean, you saw something similar in, like, Project Overlord, so, you know, we'll just do that.
I love that flashback, and then Shepard was like, do you not know how badly that sucked?
Yeah, just like...
Like, that sucked. I don't want to do that again.
Yeah. And of course, had to throw out that we had to, you know, frantically stop a human AI hybrid from taking over the world. You know, that whole thing.
Yeah, it was bad.
Still one of the most depressing missions, I think, from Mass Effect 2 is like such a brutal mission. But yeah, and so
can we talk about how Legion fucking opens the door to the shuttle, faces you, and just falls backwards?
Because he's BA.
It's true.
Yeah.
But like the first game, especially, and even in the second game, whenever Geth would like land near you, they weren't in ships. They would just fall and like unfold.
It would just fall. And
it would have been disingenuous if they made him like carefully land.
No, I know, but still, you come to humanize Legion because Legion is part of your team.
He's just reminding you that he's Geth.
Yeah,
and this is what they
basically. And it's just this moment of like, what the?
Yeah,
oh, gosh.
Shepard like kind of like is like, wait.
Because if it was one of my squishy friends who had done that, I would be having a heart attack.
I think it's like shows you the brilliance of the writing to keep that, like, make sure that they're being true to these characters as they keep going.
I agree. But still, it got me.
And like then when they cut to as they're then Shepard's like, bring us around and let us over on that like he's like almost sounds kind of like defeated a little bit, like I can't believe that just happened. And then they cut to Legion hitting the ground with a thunk and then unfolding and like just ready to go. And it's just it's a, like you said, they're a BA, and it's a really cool moment because you get to see them kind of just be Geth, right? Because we're so used to humanizing them that we do often forget that they are Geth.
And then when we get inside where the servers are, we find out that we have to go in alone due to limited resources, which I'm sure the team loves that.
And what was interesting is like when it cuts away from Legion on the ground, it then cuts to your team like with guns out, walking through the facility. And so I thought it was going to fade to black, and then we'd take over and fight our way through the facility. And when it didn't, and they showed like two cutscenes of them guns out walking through, I'm like, what is happening here? Why am I not?
When's it my turn?
Right? Like because that happens so rare in this game of them not giving you control of moving towards a target. And then it shows Legion. I'm like, oh, I guess we're doing something else. And I love the whole time Legion's telling you about how he's going to essentially jack you into the Matrix. Your team says nothing pretty much, except when you're about to get in. And Caden for me was like, are you sure about this, Shepard? But that was it. Nothing else, no discussion. Just like, yeah. I mean, on Shepard's part, I don't expect much protest because Shepard's done like everything at this point.
Shepard's like, whatever.
It's just another thing.
They brought me back from the dead.
Right.
What is this going to do?
I dropped myself to the bottom of the ocean to speak to an old god. You think this shit scares me?
So we get in the pod and then we get jacked in. And I like that when you're being scanned, Shepard is like looking around and Legion politely is just like, excess movement. Like excess movement will ruin the scan or whatever. Yeah.
The upload.
Respectfully.
It's like being in an MRI, which is like the worst.
I've only done it a couple of times. I hate being in MRI machines. I get so claustrophobic. It's the worst.
No, thank you. Then I saw what happens in Zoe's extraordinary playlist.
No pass.
No, thank you.
As Dave mentioned, when we actually get into the virtual reality, Legion gives all of these explanations for why we're seeing things the way we're seeing. Like, I needed to present this to you in a way that was easy for an organic to process, because if you tried to see this the way I see it, absolutely not.
It wouldn't make sense. But Dave's right.
You would have no idea.
The meta level is absolutely the designers going, well, we want to do this cool thing, but how do we do it without recreating an entire new part of the game or mini game? Oh, we'll just give him like a virus destroying gun. That'll work. The funny thing is you can use your powers in there too. Like I fired, even though the prompts won't come up, the wheel, I tapped my shoulder button, which is like my biotic Hadouken, and I shot it. It doesn't do anything, but I shot it. Yeah, which was interesting.
I brought up my shield in there.
Yeah, not that it mattered.
But that was about it. It doesn't matter. And I liked the concept of this, and it was definitely too long to be a cutscene. Yeah. However, there should have been something a little more dynamic for us to do, because shooting the corrupted code was just, it got boring, and then there was like, oh no, you need to shoot the code further up the line. I'm not going to tell you where that is, though.
Just anything that glows. Just shoot it.
But you have to shoot it in a certain sequence or else you won't succeed. I hated it. It sucks so much. It made me so angry. I walked around in so many circles because I couldn't find the flashing platform that I was supposed to be on to continue. It was just like, why? Why?
Because they don't make it obvious. It's not always the one at the end of your pathway.
No, and the pathways often loop together too, so you can get to everything else.
Like, if you had set up a hologram Legion where I'm supposed to go after each of these, like, I don't want to say battles, because they're not battles. Each of these data cores that I'm liberating, so to speak, then that would have been immensely helpful. You know what you didn't do? That.
Yeah.
What if they brought like one of those mini games back from 2 where you had to like hack to open the door?
Please no.
I would have preferred that. Because it would have felt more dynamic and like it was actually doing something.
That's fair. Yeah, I agree. It didn't bother me as much, and I did find it satisfying that once we got to the cores and you had to like blast the corners, and there was a lot to blast away, just hammering on that trigger finger, like that was satisfying. Because also the virus gun, because I don't even know what it was called, fires like a shotgun, which I love because it's like this big blast. So it's just like boom, 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 boom. But Yeah, I agree that the content here is really interesting. Like, all of the cutscenes we get to watch are excellent. Although, like, it's funny. I had this thought of like, wow, why does that one Quarian sound a little bit like Tali, and this other, and the Geth sound like Legion? And then Legion explains pretty quickly after, it's like, I'm filtering this in a way that you will perceive and you will understand, because the Quarians wouldn't have been wearing masks or suits at the time, but Shepard, it's projecting through Shepard's brain. All they have is the audio. The visual is being projected by Shepard's brain, and that's how he perceives it, because he wouldn't... I mean, the real answer is...
It's cheaper to hire the same voice actors and using the same character models instead of having to render new stuff. Yeah. But it still works.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
I was fine with it, but also, like, it felt... It was very obviously cheap, in a way, you know? Like, it's fine, but also don't try and pretend that it's not because you wanted to save money.
Right. You wanted to recycle resources instead of making new ones.
Right.
My question is, how do you... If, let's say this was an actual mission where you're fighting, and instead Legion is telling you this history, would it feel less true than coming straight from an archive?
I would still appreciate it from an archive. I think if it had just been audio, then I would have preferred that. Because otherwise, if you're showing a visual, like, why not show an actual visual record?
Well, how do you... If it's audio, how do you show that they're unarmed Geth that they shot?
That's true.
Yeah, that's fair, too.
That is true.
Like, I just want... Like, what decisions... I'm trying to imagine... Like, being in the room, trying to, like, this is the story we want to tell. How do we do it?
I mean, you can even as simply say, like, don't shoot, he's unarmed.
Yeah.
That's true.
Someone else saying that. But there is also communicating the agricultural unit picking up a gun for the first time.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it does feel more powerful to see the Geth get shot and stuff when they're talking about not fighting.
Yeah, it is.
Or like,
it's also very upsetting. Especially in our current political climate.
For sure.
Of course.
And like the first one is just kind of a documentary style, like they're working on the first Geth unit that has awareness, and you know, it waking up and talking to them, and is pretty uneventful other than like this is the kind of the origin of life almost a little bit. But the second...
And it was so cute, these two scientists just like doting on this AI unit. Oh my god, it was so adorable.
And then they're debating like whether or not they want to name it.
Yeah.
Right?
And, like, one is saying, you are being too extra with it. And the other one is like, were you not here until, like, 1 o'clock in the morning making sure that everything was operational? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Let's not lie and say we're not attached.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, putting each other on blast. It was very cute.
The second one is what got me, though, because... when the unit goes, why are you turning me off? Have I done something wrong? Tell me what I did wrong so I don't do it. Like, it just, like, it broke my heart. I was, because I get that.
They were basically children.
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, the Geth are the children of the Quarians, and I have a lot of feelings about that.
No, it's real. It gets real quick.
Real.
As soon as you make those analogies to your own life or whatever experiences you may have had, it's like...
Yeah.
I totally feel you.
Like, this whole mission, it's so introspective, and earlier, when we first got in, Shepard compared what they were doing to wiping out an entire city, and in a way that is what's happening with every data node we take down, and with every memory we see. You know, it's almost like we're erasing that history.
Yeah. How did you both feel about them pulling out to show the result? Like, after I think it's either the first node or the second node, they pull out and show, for me, it was Tali talking to Ron.
Yeah.
And then
same.
saying the ships are starting to shut down, and you see the ships drifting. And then, you know, I think Tali says something along the lines that it must be working. And then they go back into the action. I thought it kind of interrupted the flow. I understand wanting to see the results. I feel like it would have been better served to, like, get through the whole thing and then show it happen. I don't know. I'm torn on it. I don't know that there's a right answer, but it did feel a little bit like an interruption.
I understand what you're saying, but I think it makes what Legion does more significant because if you're just thinking you're turning off all these people and these are the results, and you don't get to see that because then he turns them back on, but like they're reprogrammed to be like him essentially.
Yeah, that's true.
It's or them, right? They use plural.
It's unclear, but we've been doing that just because they don't really have a gender and they are multiple. Thing like
any non-binary person, they are really just a cloud of bees.
But yeah, no, I mean that's a good point, Dave. I get that, and I guess also ultimately you want, like, it does lead into the, I forgot already, and we just talked about it. It does lead into that surprise that's coming in just a minute. Anyway,
yeah.
I am of a similar mind to Dave. I feel like it is actually beneficial to the player to see that there is progress being made, because otherwise I think it feels like an endless trudge through this virtual reality if you don't take that moment to pull back and just be like, no, you are making progress. Things are happening. Don't worry. Just keep doing what you're doing. Because otherwise it feels like...
Why am I shooting this orange boxes?
Yeah.
Box wires.
Yeah. The next few scenes that we get are just as heartbreaking as a Geth begging not to be shut off. We see Quarians protecting the Geth, getting assaulted by fellow Quarians. Some creators are sacrificing their lives to protect their Geth units who want nothing to do with uprising or fighting, or even are just, living their lives. We also learn that those Quarians that sacrifice themselves are remembered all these generations later by the Geth, whereas the Quarians have forgotten them. And that's kind of the point of what the Quarians did with their martial law, to eliminate all of the Geth supporters, so that way the only ones that remained are the ones that remember the narrative that they want to build.
Yeah, it's like, it makes you wonder like how different it could have been if the sympathizers had actually outnumbered this empowered military force.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shows that absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? This idea that the people in charge, of course, are going to do what they want, that they think is simple, and they think they're monsters. And, like, it really drives it home with that last bit, with them remembering the Quarians who defended them, because then in the next scene, we see them talk about how, the Quarians talk about how they're not being pursued by the Geth. And that's because the Geth just wanted to be able to live. They drove the Quarians out so they could live, not because they wanted to kill the Quarians. And, like, I know I had heard that before, but it hit a lot harder now. And I think, again, it has to do with a lot of being more self-aware as an adult and seeing the more complex world.
And they said, like, they didn't know what the repercussions would be if they basically committed genocide on their creators.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, it's sad that, like, even this more infantile race has,
more empathy.
Yeah, more empathy. Yeah.
Like, a race full of artificial intelligences that don't really have emotions the way organics perceive emotions still have more empathy and more kindness towards their creators than their creators can spare for them. And the only reason they didn't spare more Quarian lives is because those are the lives that threw themselves away at the Geth.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like, and we're going to really see it play out in the next mission we do, and we'll talk more about that towards the end of the show, but, like, this narrative, the Geth narrative, I think is one of the best narratives that Mass Effect constructs, because the whole first game is robots bad. That's it. And that's all they let you think.
Yeah.
Even knowing that the Quarian created them, again, the one Quarian you know really well is controlling that narrative because that's what she knows, because she doesn't even know everything.
Yeah.
And just with what they do with Legion in the second game, and then how this is going to wrap up on Rannoch, like, it's just really brilliantly written. And not everything in the game is, but this is one of those through lines for a species and a culture that is just absolutely brilliantly done. And not perfect.
Tali's just a baby. She was just, raised in a world full of racism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
she
true.
doesn't know better. I find it weird when people... And no hate here, but, like, I find it weird when people romance Tali because she always seems so immature.
See, okay, I have a flip on that.
Go for it.
For me, Liara was the immature one when you
Really?
first meet her. You met her primarily in 2.
I met her in 2, so it's different.
And she was already like
she's BA. She's like, I'm gonna be Shadow Broker. What's up? It's like
she was already heavily seasoned with trauma, and I like them seasoned. So, like, if I had met Liara first in Shadow Broker, then I would have been like, yes, let's do this. But I didn't. I met her as a sweet little baby gay who, like, needed her hand held throughout an entire relationship. And, like, it felt predatory and it felt just overly icky. For me, personally. Like,
see, I'm glad I wonder how I would feel if I played that first, then.
Like, as an older queer person, it felt very predatory because there's a lot of, like, negative narratives about older queer people. What's the word that I'm looking for?
It's not grooming, is it?
Grooming! It is grooming. Thank you.
That's it. But I knew it right away, but I was like, I was going to give her time. She's going to come to it. It's like...
just absolutely not in my head. There's this negative narrative of older LGBT people grooming younger people to be like their perfect partner.
Okay.
And it's very manipulative and it's very gross. So that's why I felt very uncomfortable romancing. Even though she's 108 years old, her mentality is still very young and very naive and very sheltered. Whereas Tally, from go, she knows what she wants. She knows who she is. She, like...
But it just always felt like a young crush. Like, you know, that's just how it came off to me.
I think knowing her in 1 really shapes this relationship because she's never a damsel in distress.
And Liara is trapped when you find her and you have to rescue her.
Do you don't feel like they damsel her in 2 with like...
They do, actually. We make a joke about it.
Because they do, like, with the whole, like, you know, her becoming Voss Normandy and all that stuff, like, the trial and everything.
They do damsel her a little, and we make a joke about that. But in 1, when you go to rescue her, she's already there with the grenade, just being like, no! This is not happening. And, like, I admire her so much.
I think it comes down to perspective, right? Because I think it's very, like, a lot of the characters are portrayed pretty young. And also, like, Shepard is portrayed as a veteran, but I don't know that they actually say Shepard's age. I think
Shepard is in their mid to late 20s.
Yeah. So, like, Shepard's not that old. You can make Shepard look old and play it however you want. And, like, for me, Shepard is my age whenever I'm playing Shepard, right? Like, that's how your brain kind of works a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why romancing Liara on my first playthrough ever as FemShep in my original playthrough seemed to make sense because she didn't seem that much younger than me, you know, 8 years ago or whatever it was. But now, as someone closer to 40 than 30, now when we replayed it for the trilogy, I was like, oh no, I can't.
Oh no.
You know.
No, thank you.
And I think that's part of it. It's sort of, you know, yeah. But I appreciate also, Dave, that you see Tali so differently because you didn't play the first game. I think that's really interesting because you
probably because I you know experienced damseled Tali first.
Right.
You know?
That's probably what it is. You didn't see Tali, like, throw a grenade at someone who tried to
I've never felt like she could hold
her
her own. I was like, I need to help this girl all the time.
No, that's true.
And she's just like, oh, thank you, Shepard. If you weren't here.
yeah, that's true.
She's just so passionate. I'm sorry. I'm going to be thinking about Tali for a few minutes.
It's okay.
You should.
I love her so much.
Going back to the mission, so after we see the final cutscene, we learn about how the Geth didn't pursue, like I said before, because they never wanted to wipe them out. They just wanted a home. They wanted to be left to live, which is like...
They just didn't want to die. That is literally all they wanted.
Yeah. We go back to the real world. They unplug Shepard.
Wait, you forgot that there's a scene between Shepard and Legion.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Legion shows Shepard their first meeting, which I thought was really nice. And Legion says something, which, like...
That he was the first organic that really gave them a chance.
Yeah, Shepard was the first organic who willingly worked with the Geth, but also, Legion says, hope sustains organics during periods of difficulty. We admire the concept. And even the concept of a Geth admiring a concept, like, that's bringing them so much closer to singularity and having this depth of emotion. Every time we talk to Legion now, we see a little bit more emotion than we did before.
Yeah. I've said it every mission with Legion so far in this game, but DC Douglas's performance as Legion in this game, like it was good in this. It was very good in the second game, but in this game, it's just on another level. And I have, outside of this a little bit, on a meta level, my Shepherd has been. So there's a bug with male Shepherds. Sometimes if you see him as a VI, like the gag where you can see the Shepherd VI, when you see him in the scene, he doesn't look like your Shepherd because the game's code, whatever, can't. So the Shepherd in the video meeting Legion for the first time was bald with a beard, which is not my Shepherd, and it sucked because like I'm looking at it and you're talking with Legion about this first meeting, and in my brain I'm going, but that's not me. I don't look like that, and. There's nothing to blame for that. And I'm hoping things like that are fixed in the Legendary Edition, but it was just a bummer.
Maybe that's racism from the Geth. All you organics.
Fair. Fair. Honestly, I can't fight that. That's fair.
Yeah. I'd be like, yeah, okay. I get it.
That's what I look like.
But yeah, that moment was really sweet, and it's just interesting to see how far Legion has come, and is going to make the next mission even more complicated. But enough about that. So we jack out of the system. Legion makes it sound like it's falling apart, but there's no actual threat. Like you just run to the exit, but like Legion's like breaking up, and you're like, he's like, you have to leave now.
Yeah, I thought something bad was gonna
happen. Nothing happened.
I thought I was gonna get trapped.
And then when you leave, you exit the pod, and Legion's still down for a little bit. They show Geth falling over on the ships, and then Legion wakes up and like 9 Geth primes just surround everybody. And Tali is immediately like, what the hell?
I mean, fair. It's scary. I forgot that this happened. Basically, Legion informs you that while you were doing what you were supposed to do, Legion was going around to, like, basically have private conversations with different Geth within the server. Be like, hey, do you want to renounce the old machines? Because here's what's up.
You have two options. But, like, is this so in keeping with Legion? Because, like, in his priority mission in 2, he basically, like, well, we could kill them, or we could, they could work with us, right? Like, it doesn't have to be that way. He's always, like, bartering for the Geth. Yeah.
Which I think is totally fair and totally, like, valid. You don't want to leave your people behind if you can help it.
Totally. Yeah. And when Legion wakes up, he informs you that these Geth have reached a consensus to help renounce the old machines and will fight for the Alliance and against the Reapers. And I think it's Caden's just like, well, we better let Admiral Hackett know that he's got a fleet of primes coming towards him. 'Cause, like, imagine if they just showed up and you didn't tell them.
Yeah.
Hi!
Panic ensues. Yeah. We have to deal with this too?
We're here to help with your giant machine.
And then that's the mission. Then we go back to the ship. We have a conversation with Admiral Zen, who still sucks. She's the worst.
She's like, badly wants to do a war crime.
She just wants to experiment on Legion a little,
God, I shut that shit down so fast.
Think about all the progress that we can make.
That's what every villain says before they commit a genocide. Think about the progress.
Yeah.
and she's the same way with the Geth Prime. She's like, well, if you decide you want to know how they work, essentially, she's like, just let me know. I'll help you out.
If you want me to examine them to prove their loyalty. No, thank you. You're not getting your hands on any of them. Please go to your evil lair elsewhere.
She's
thank
crazy.
you.
Yeah.
She's out of her mind. Well, I feel like, I don't know the voice actress's name, but she's the same voice actress who does Morrigan in Dragon Age. And I feel like Morrigan, Admiral Zen, are they really that different?
I mean, no, I guess not. Morgan kind of wants to do what's... Like, Morgan is pragmatic to a fault. Like, this is the obvious answer, but Morgan, that requires us killing 30 people. Yeah, but it'll do the job. It's like, that's not how this works.
And, like, Morgan's not always wrong.
No.
Zen is always wrong, though. Zen is always wrong.
All in all, like, I don't mind this mission. I think I like what it does narratively more than I like the mechanics of playing it. But I agree that also it just being a cutscene would feel less than. I don't know the solve for that, but I love the narrative stuff here. It's some of the best stuff in the game.
I agree. That's why I picked it. I was like, I want this episode.
Yeah, and we're glad you.
Because I didn't want somebody else to take it and like not do it justice. It requires like being passionate about these like social civil rights issues, you know?
Yeah.
Totally. And like someone could have come on the show and just been like, yeah, whatever, the Geth, they're just robots, who cares? And that would suck.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that you...
I feel like absolutely no one person that we know would ever say that to either of us and expect to
sure.
survive the conversation.
That's true. That's true.
You don't even have to really shoot. There's nothing. I thought this was shoot game.
Shoot game.
No.
Shoot game.
Shoot game.
No, I wouldn't expect anyone that you would have on here would treat it that way, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. That is it for this mission, Geth Fighter Squadron. We will now move on to our fandom corner.
Yes.
What have you brought?
Fandom corner, fandom corner.
There's a song?
When
Matt lets me get it out, there is.
Yeah. When she decides to sing it, because I refuse to edit an actual song until the episode every time. I won't do it.
Because Matt doesn't love me.
Yeah, that's the reason.
He uses me for my husband, and that's it.
And your friends. Let's be real.
Yeah, I know. You and him both.
What have you brought us for Fandom Corner this week?
So, a few years back, our dear friend Rob Starobin shared with me a fan fiction about Legion adopting a cat.
Oh my god.
It's really cute. It's called Legion in the Case of the Kitten. No, I'm sorry. Legion the Geth in the Case of the Kitten by Amber Star of ThunderClan on fanfiction.net. I'm trying to find a good passage to read that doesn't spoil anything. Okay, I think this one. Consensus agreed. Rescue of the kitten would improve relations between this platform and Tally Creator, and possibly organics overall. Legion turned and walked back to the console, picked the kitten up in its arms, and walked back out the door. As soon as it was gone, Tally couldn't hold back the giggles trying to burst their way out of her chest. She'd made sure to get a good picture of it. Sure, she had her animosity towards Legion, but no one, not even a Quarian, could deny that the sight of a small, fluffy animal trying to take a nap on a Geth's head was funny. Cal Rieger was going to bust his suit laughing when he saw this. So, it's a very cute fanfiction. There is a sequel about Legion and his kitten, and it's very cute.
I love that.
I'm surprised Talia wouldn't be worried about, like, it ripping her suit or, like, the allergens.
I feel like a Quarian in their suit, first of all, would not have a suit so flimsy that could be torn by
a cat,
animal
by a little
claws.
kitten. They're sharp.
I mean,
Cats are sharp.
I know. I live in a house of 1,000 of them.
That's too
That
many.
being,
1,000.
oh, tell me about how many there are. And also, being in the suit, I feel like that makes her safer from allergens because her air is being filtered.
true.
So she doesn't have to worry about it.
She doesn't have to worry about it. But, like, even more, like, I definitely can't take this off.
Yeah. Like, I cannot risk knowing. Look at your little feet. My cat just stretched her feet so
Oh
cute.
no! Did you see the toe beans?
I did. She stretched them out. I love my cat so much, guys.
Everyone on the podcast knows.
Everyone should. She's
What's your
so
cat's
beautiful.
name?
Her name is Hera.
Hera? Like,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
That was Fandom Corner. We do have two more things. The first of the two more things is Dave, pick a character from Mass Effect. Any character.
Kasumi?
All right. See what Kasumi's is.
I like Kasumi.
I don't think we've done Kasumi yet.
Thief girl.
Have you ever stolen anything?
Dave?
I stole gummy savers once. And I don't think I ever ate them. I was too riddled with guilt. I think I threw them out.
Matt, have you ever stolen anything?
Yes. Once I was so bitter. So I wore a trench coat in high school, like a lot of tall white kids around my age. And
Tall white
The
goth
Matrix
kids,
had
yes,
happened,
continue.
you know.
and every time I went to the CD shop in the mall, like I think it was an FYE, they would follow me around because they assumed I was a thief, and it drove me crazy because of course I wouldn't steal. So one day I purposely evaded them, took something, and then brought it back, and just kind of like threw it back in, and then walked out. They didn't pursue me or anything, but I was like, "Look, if I wanted to steal, I would have, and I'd still bring it back." I was really dumb, but it's a thing I did. I don't even remember what CD it was. Probably Metallica or something.
Well, first of all, my husband would argue that I stole his heart.
Bleh.
Second of all, He'd kill me if I didn't say
That's
that.
fair. It's fair. And he does listen, so.
He does. I would hear about it later. I'm trying to think, have I ever really stolen anything? I'm such a goody two-shoes. So I didn't technically steal, however. Maybe this kind of counts.
This wasn't always your cat.
You stole the cat.
Well,
I'm trying to guess.
I mean, I didn't pay her adoption fee, so...
Technically.
Technically. No, I was going to talk about when I was younger, my very first time going to Warped Tour. I bought tickets, but for some reason we decided not to wait in line, so we ran across the racetrack and hopped the fence and broke into Warped Tour.
Amazing.
So, I did pay to go, I just did not wait in line to
It is
get
a
in.
long line. I've been to Warped Tour, Randall's
Yeah.
Island,
I think that's the one that I went to, yeah.
okay.
And we ran across a racetrack, and I think some band helped us over the fence.
That's
And I
amazing.
don't know what band it was.
Amazing.
I think we had to get our way out from the back area where the bands hung out in order to get to the shows. I have no idea why we did that.
Cause kids.
Exactly.
Because
How old were
teenagers.
you at
Aren't
the
you
time?
looking forward
Yeah.
to those
I-
moments, Dave, with your
I was
own
16.
child?
No.
I think I was 16, 17. I was best friends with Amanda at the time, and Amanda was not the best influence on me as a person.
What year was this? Maybe we were at the same Warped Tour.
If it was when I was 16.
Yeah, you do that math.
Do the math.
Shut up, I hate you. I'm gay, I can't do math. In 2000, I was 12.
There you go.
In 2000, you were 12, so 4 years later.
Yeah,
2004. 2000. So we were not the
2004,
same.
2005.
I think I went in 02 and 03.
I think you're closer
Yeah.
to my age, Dave. MJ's a little younger than us.
Yeah, I'm 32.
Well, wee baby as far as I'm concerned. All right, well, before we wrap up the show, we do have a new review. If you would like for us to read your review on the show, all you have to do is go to your preferred podcast platform of choice, or if you don't have one, Apple Podcasts, which helps us the most, and give us a star rating and write a review, and we will read it on the show. So go do that.
So this review is from Mr. Sketches via Apple Podcasts. It's called Amazing and Still Running Calibrations. Another hit from Matt in terms of podcasting, and MJ brings a great amount of heat and fandom to the table. Helped me rekindle my love for Mass Effect and the best years of my life that I've had gaming.
So I know Mr. Sketches. Mr. Sketches is a listener of Screen Snark and follows me on Twitch, and we follow each other on Twitter. So thank you, Mr. Sketches. When you eventually get to this episode, we appreciate it. Those are kind words, and thank you.
Yeah, that's gotta feel good.
Always does.
Yeah, I just like that they said that I bring heat. That's right, I do. I bring the heat.
Again, if you want us to read your review online, you can do it on a podcast platform. Tweet at us, send us an email, any of those good things, and we will read it right here. That's it for this episode. Our next episode will be Priority Rannoch, the big kahuna, the thing that all of this has been leading up to, and is with one of my favorite queers, the incredible Derek Van Dyke.
I'm so hyped to meet Derek Van Dyke.
We've talked about him before. He recently streamed the trilogy and has become a good friend of mine on the internet. So yeah, Derek's going to join us for Priority Rannoch, one of the other most popular missions on our roadmap.
Yeah.
Dave, thank you for joining us. This has been a delight. You are a delight.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Will you please tell folks where they can find you and find Dinosaur Machines on the internet?
Sure. You can find us at Dino_Machines on Twitter. But really, just listen to the podcast. You know, come hang out, find out if you like us. If you like, shoot us a message. You could join our Discord. We talk to people. It's cool. We hang out. You know, and that's really it, bro.
If you want to follow Dave, you can go to zombie_pirate on Twitter. He
Yeah,
has
that's
some
me.
pretty good tweets too. Yeah, Dave, I completely forgot about our fantasy league that we're in on the Dinosaur Machines Discord. Like, I remember when someone else posts disappointedly about some game getting
A
canceled.
game that's not coming out. I don't have good feelings for myself this year. I think you're in a pretty good position.
So far, but it's early. I think I have points from one game or two games.
Yeah. I have 0 points so far, so I'm really just hoping that Pokemon Snap like really throws me up the board. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I have good feelings.
That's coming up soon.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, next month.
That said, let us thank some people and tell folks where they can find other stuff.
If you like what you heard here, follow us on social media. We're at ReignitePod on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, facebook.com/reignitepod, or you can send us an email, reignitepod@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher. It helps us get seen so other people can find us.
We're also members of the Certain Point of View podcast network. You can go to certainpov.com to find more nerdy podcasts, each with a unique point of view. You can also find a permanent invite link to our Discord server and join in the conversation about this show's and all of the other shows on the network. You can also talk with MJ and everyone else except me about Andromeda, which I have not played and I'm playing for the first time for the show. So, have fun talking about things that I don't understand yet.
I figured out how to do the betting pool.
Yeah, they're going to take bets on who I romance in Andromeda.
It's going to be more than just that.
Oh, no.
I'm very excited about it. This is your gentle reminder that my husband has been so kind to let me use his P.O. Box, so if you would like to send us letters or cards, please send that to P.O. Box 4288 in Dunellen, New Jersey 08812, and I will be sure to send you a sticker in return.
You can also find everything that I do at djstormageddon.com. It has all the podcasts I do, my merch page, my Ko-fi, my Twitch page, all of that. I used to have a Patreon. I recently shut it down. I just didn't feel like I was able to keep up with fulfilling anything extra as I'm producing 8 podcasts and hosting 4 podcasts. So no more extra stuff or time for it. But that said, if you still want to contribute and you were a former Patreon contributor or interested in it, you can go subscribe on my Twitch channel or go to my Ko-fi. All of that goes right into me making this and many other podcasts that I do a little bit better.
We'd like to thank Red Spinks for our It's Okay to Be a Marshmallow t-shirt on Redbubble featuring our favorite marshmallow, Kaden Alenko. You can find more of his work at Chaos Does Art on Instagram.
We'd also like to thank Case Aiken for developing more amazing shirt designs that you can find on certainpov.com or on Teespring.
Thank you to David Boyle for designing our logo, which you can also get on a shirt through Redbubble. And finally, thank you to Dan Bull for letting us use the Mass Effect rap for our theme music. I'm MJ.
I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And I'm Dave Grima. We should go.
You're listening to Reignite. I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite podcast on the Citadel.
Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone.
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.